This is essentially a new American revolution. And anybody who wants this country to remain free needs to step up right now. These are federal felonies. Altering a vote or changing a ballot is a federal felony. People need to come forward now and get on the right side of this issue and report the fraud they know existed in Dominion voting systems, because that's what it was created to do. It was its sole original purpose. It has been used all over the world to defy the will of people who wanted freedom.
Cindy, at the outset of this broadcast, I said that this is the culmination of what has been over a 4-year effort to overthrow this president, to first deny his candidacy, the election, but then to overthrow his presidency. This looks like the effort to carry out an end game in the effort against him. Do you concur?
Oh, absolutely, and it's been organized and conducted with the help of Silicon Valley people, the big tech companies, the social media companies, and even the media companies. And I'm going to release the Kraken.
There has been great controversy, as well as you know, about reports of a raid on a company, Citel, in Germany, which held election data, presumably, and a raid that was carried out by U.S. forces, or so goes the report, although the forces themselves were not clearly identified, nor the event actually proven. Can you tell us what actually did happen there and what you do know?
Well, I know that is one of the server centers. There's also one in Barcelona. So it is related to the entire Smartmatic Dominion software operation. We do not know whether the good guys got these servers or whether the bad guys got them. Being on the outside of the government, we simply don't know. I'm hoping it's the good guys, and if they have that, then there should be scads of evidence of, frankly, an international conspiracy, criminal conspiracy of the worst sort.
And it's the presumption then that they had the records on those servers of all of the votes that were processed by Dominion or Smartmatic?
Yes, the way it works, the votes can be changed either on the ground as they come in. People can watch the votes stream in live. For example, there was a Dominion employee high-ranking at the Detroit Center the night of the election. He could have watched the votes come in live and manipulated them in that process. It could have run an automatic algorithm against all the votes, which we believe is what happened originally. And then the machines had to stop, and the counting had to stop in multiple places because President Trump's lead was so great at that point. They had to stop the vote counting and come in and backfill the votes they needed to change the result.
And let me ask you as we wrap up here, what is the next steps for the legal team, and when do you believe you will be prepared to come forward?
Are votes being held and processed, tabulated overseas? There's reports that there was a piece of hardware, possibly a server, picked up in Germany. Is that true, and is it related to this?
That is true. It is somehow related to this, but I do not know whether good guys got it or bad guys got it.
So we don't know who picked it up.
The servers at Citel in Germany were confiscated the other day. I am hearing it was our forces that got those servers. So I think the government is now working on an investigation of what really happened. But we're getting in evidence also that there were lines into the servers from 4 foreign countries, all extremely adverse to the interests of the United States.
You mentioned briefly the whistleblower. There is a whistleblower. Remember, whistleblowers who are against President Trump are hailed as heroes and deified. What can you tell us about this individual?
The one who gave the affidavit?
Yes.
He was a high-ranking military officer. He was very close to Hugo Chavez, and he is just absolutely disgusted with what he's seen and was participating in when he was with Mr. Chavez. He saw how it all worked. He was at meetings where it was fully briefed. and he wants this country to not fall prey to the same corruption and tactics that were used in Venezuela.
And I'm sorry, is he an American military officer or a Venezuelan military officer?
He was a Venezuelan military officer. He lives in this country now.
All right. And you mentioned the CIA today. I heard you during a radio appearance. You want the CIA director fired. It seemed a little bit off topic and off message, but what's the tie-in, if you don't mind?
The tie-in is that there's no way these programs could have been run around the world to affect elections without the CIA. We also have had people disclose to us the whole Hammer program that was created for the CIA and Scorecard, which is essentially the same thing. It seems like every country has used something like this to do what it wants to do. Supposedly ours was invented to influence foreign elections, but that too could have been turned on this election. It's all part of the same part and parcel of government interference in elections to make choices against the will of the people. And the will of the people in this country was that Donald Trump win in a landslide. If we can get to the bottom of it, and I am determined to do that, I think we'll find he had at least 80 million votes. The only reason the glitches happened in the system was because he had so far many more votes than they had calculated in advance. Their algorithms wouldn't perform the functions they'd originally performed or were set to perform. They couldn't make up the vote count. He had gotten so many hundreds of thousands more than they planned. So that's when they had to stop the counting and come up with a way to backfill the votes or destroy votes for Trump while they fabricated votes for Biden.
Sidney Powell, who is a former federal prosecutor, by the way, spent 10 years working for the federal government. Good luck. And by the way, very quickly, you have evidence. It's coming in fast. There is a reason for not making it public, correct? I mean, you're going to have a hostile media picking it apart, possibly trying to destroy your case before you can even make it. Is that part of your thinking? Very briefly, if you don't mind.
Well, not really. It's a matter of collecting it in the right form and format to be admissible. And we have witnesses that are scared. We have witnesses that are afraid for their lives, afraid for their family. Back in Venezuela, there are all kinds of concerns. People have been threatened, and it's...
And welcome back, my friends. We're honored to be joined by retired Air Force Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney. Sir, thank you for your service to the country on this Veterans Day. We appreciate having you here. And unfortunately, we're talking about election security today. Now, many folks and viewers have been hearing a lot about something called Hammer and Scorecard. First, tell everybody what it is.
Well, Hammer and Scorecard, Hammer is a surveillance tool designed to seek out terrorists, started in 2003. It was converted by the Biden administration into a surveillance tool to listen to American people and record what they were doing. The Scorecard is an application like on your iPhone that can manipulate voting data to keep it within 3%, so it's not obvious, but switch it from Trump to Biden, which the Democrats did in this election. And it is clearly one of the most subtle and stealthy ways of changing voting that there is today. And this is the first massive attack in the United States history. So now there'll be no more free election, Chris, after this one, if we get this issue resolved.
Well, General, I got to ask, because is there verifiable information that the Trump administration can use, that our citizens can see, that we can say that it was deployed in this election against American voters?
Yes, and we will show specifically at what time, for instance, in Michigan at 0400 on the 4th of November, 138,000 votes came in for Biden. We'll show a whole host of these that around the country in the key battleground states that were attacked, the time and how many votes were changed. And we'll have to compare it manually to the votes that went in to the Secretary of State's office and then that came out, the differential. Because people they all realize, I think, that the voting machines are not hooked up to the internet. There are some in Texas that are, but in general they are. They're bundled, go up to the state Secretary of State, and there at certain points they're shifted onto the internet and distributed. And that's where Hammer is put in, and they put the scorecard application on it and manufacture a different vote total, in this particular case, in favor of Biden. This has to be proved because it'll have to go to a court of law.
Mm-hmm. In general, of course, this all begs the question now, if this is going to be demonstrated and shown, who has the sophistication and the technology advanced enough to pull something like this off? Who did, if this did happen, who did it to us?
Well, I don't know who specifically did it to us, but the fact is, and I'm just starting to hear that the Russians and the Chinese were playing with us as well. And so I can't give you the names. I can tell you that Jim Clapper and John Brennan, the former DNI and former director of the CIA, were involved with the program. 2 weeks after President Obama came in, they shifted it over to a separate CIA facility and went and started listening to U.S. So the people I don't know exactly, but it benefited the Democratic Party. So obviously they were involved with it to shift the voting. And the reason that's important, and a great question, Chris, is because you've got to look at the whole situation that we're involved with. Here you had Vice President Biden had a record number of votes, larger than Barack Obama. Now, for a person that didn't do any campaigning, and the largest crowd he had were 12 cars with people blowing horns, never getting out of the basement, did not do one press conference that was an hour long and got real questions, to have gotten the number of votes, the record number of votes he got. And the reason is because people aren't really aware of cyber warfare and what the Democratic Party did to shift those votes.
What's happening in this country should never happen. And we are going through, there's no doubt in my mind, we're going through a crucible of history. And if we don't correct what it is that's happening right now over the next couple of weeks, then I really hate to even think about what will happen in our country going forward into the latter part of December and certainly into the next month. I do not believe for a second that the country will accept Vice President Biden as the next president based on what we know to be probably the greatest fraud that our country has ever experienced in our history. I mean, what we're seeing, what I'm in right in the middle of it right now, and I will tell you that, first of all, the president has clear paths to victory. They have clear paths to victory, and they actually don't require a lot of courtroom action. What they require is they require a lot of honesty out of elected officials, and frankly, a lot of Americans who are coming forward and telling us their stories. I mean, the hundreds and hundreds of Americans around the country in different states, not just the swing states, but many, many other states that are coming forward with their stories and putting them down on affidavits as witnesses. We had probably 10 or 12 affidavits come in from one particular state today, and because there's been a number of threats to people, these particular patriots, they sent their photos in with their affidavits and said, put mine up at the top of the list because I want people to know that I'm not going to be afraid of these people that are threatening our country and our way of life. And so I say all that, and on one hand, and the other hand, as I just described, we have clear paths to victory for this president. And frankly, he's going to win Pennsylvania. He's going to win Arizona. He's going to win Georgia. He's going to win Nevada. He's going to win Michigan. And the other one that he's probably going to pull in is Wisconsin too, because they're there's a discrepancy in Wisconsin of 130,000 fraudulent ballots that they just found, they just discovered. So there's a lot of things happening, and it's all, to me, it's all positive. I was asked today on a scale of 1 to 10 who will be the next president, and I said 10, it'll be Donald Trump. It'll be president. There's no doubt in my mind that he won this election hands down in a landslide, probably somewhere between 350 and 400 electoral college votes. What we have seen is over, and I know this, I mean, over the last probably 2 decades and probably longer, I could, give you a little bit of a history lesson in that, but I won't. But over the last couple of decades, what we have seen is a complete shift in how fast I believe that Communist China, in their long-term plan, decided that to sort of move up their plans to become the global superpower, sole global superpower on the planet. And their sort of plan was by about the middle of this century that we're in right now. And I believe during the last 2016 election, when they didn't get the candidate that they needed and the kind of ideology that they saw America moving towards, they were not going to allow 2020 to happen. And so now what we have is this theft with mail-in ballots, the theft with this software, Smartmatic software, and these Dominion systems. I mean, these are systems that are not owned by this country. They're not owned by this country. They're owned by other. They were introduced into this country. I mean, how can we say, as the United States of America, how can we say that we accept a system that is not made in this country, and not even, and in many cases, the ballots aren't even tallied in this country? How can we say that here in this country, that we accept that? The one thing, and for you all and for all your listeners, the one most precious thing that makes me the same as the wealthiest guy or gal on the planet, or the poorest person in America, what makes us equal? What makes us equal is when we go in over to vote. My vote matters the same as the guy who's the richest guy, in America. It matters the exact same. That's where we are equal, and that's why this has to be fair and free. And it was not. And we probably, in fact, we know we have evidence of previous elections where this happened as well, but we're now focused on this one. And I'm going to tell you, we're not in this to lose. We are not in this to lose these battles. We're in this to win these battles. And I believe we're gonna win. And I'm confident we are, because we have the right people, we have the right plan and strategy, and it's a little bit of direct and a little bit of indirect that we're taking, and people are talking all the time to each other. So I'm anxious, and you probably hear it in my voice, and I'm a little anxious because I just cannot believe the media and the censorship that is going on. I mean, just look at what they do to the President of the United States of America. Look at what Twitter is doing to the President of the United States of America. In Pennsylvania the other day, and if anybody had a chance to watch it, I mean, it was an extraordinary hearing with politicians from Pennsylvania, senators on a panel, and the one senator that ran the panel for the state of Pennsylvania, that listened to the hearing, listened to a bunch of witnesses, listened to Rudy, listened to Jen Ellis and others on their team. The individual that ran it was a retired military colonel, and he's now a state senator in Pennsylvania. And he gave, at the very end of it, he gave a really good short summary speech. And it was heartwarming because it was sort of a mom and apple pie that, hey, we can't allow this to happen in our country. We cannot, portray ourselves to the world as a third world nation. It was a really, really good, closing speech. And what did Twitter do? Twitter took him offline immediately. They completely removed his Twitter account, so people couldn't follow this.
States, you mentioned and you used the word coup. You mentioned we never again should allow this to happen to the American people. You used the word uprooted, undercut, usurped, or held hostage by a coup against our nation. Would you care to expand upon the word coup? Because I know General McInerney has used the word over and over, coup d'etat. I know you're not a man given to hyperbole, so I know that word did not make that into your statement you released for no reason. Would you care to expand upon the use of that word?
Sure. I mean, I think what we experienced over the last 4 years, and certainly in the late 2016, very late 2016 and early 2017 period, was a very strong effort to unseat a duly elected president and really try to remove Donald Trump by just political pressure, by technology pressure, by financial pressure early on in his tenure. Maybe to get him to just say, you know what, I'm not gonna, I don't need this. I'm not gonna put up with it, and walk away. I think that there was some sentiment. In fact, I know there was some sentiment to maybe he'll just, he's the guy from New York. He's not a politician. He'll just say, you know what, I don't need this stuff. I got better things to do, and leave. And thank God that he didn't. And that then lasted. When he didn't, that then continued. That effort continued to go after him in any way possible to remove him through some means, whether it was the fake Russiagate, Spygate, or whether it was the fake impeachment, or some of the other, the kind of stuff that we're seeing with this COVID situation that we're having to deal with now. So that's the first phase, if you will. That was still that's something that's been going on for years. Now we're moving into something different. So and not different in terms of it. This is still a coup in progress, but now it's a little bit different. And it's actually sort of they upped their game. When they lost in 2016, I think that there was a decision, and I believe this, and that there was some type of decision to say we're not going to allow this to happen again. I mean, all you got to do is go back and listen to some of the comments this past summer from some of the senior people that were that are part of this Democratic Party, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton one being, I think it was back in July or certainly mid-summer time frame, where she said, no matter what, Joe Biden should not concede. What are we talking about there? I mean, why would she say that in the middle of the summer, 3, maybe 4 months before an election? So one of the things that I do know from my experience, in the military and in different places around the world is when your enemy tells you that they're going to do something, you better pay attention to what they said. And you better have some plans, and you better have some ideas about how to deal with that if in fact that does come to fruition. Well, in this case, we have opposing camps in our opposing camps of our political parties, and we know that the political party on the left is really way over on the left. Now, I have a hard time calling someone a Democrat or the Democratic Party. That's a name only, folks, because it's really the Democratic Socialist Party of America that has, usurped and taken over that element, and they are a very loud voice. And so they're Katie bar the door assault on us.
Thank you, Kim. Senator Mastriano, please.
Thank you, Senator Argel and Senator Ward. Thank you for being here and supporting this here, and welcome everybody to this most historic occasion and this most historic town. And what happened here in 1863, I think today we're going to see a turning of the tide, because we have not really heard the truth or the arguments made on the other side on what happened. And when we're dealing with a government and leadership in Harrisburg that wants to close their ears to what's happened during this election, and sadly many in the media that are complicit and want to write off what happened. So for me, on this battlefield and remembering what happened 157 years ago, especially 157 years ago last week, where Abraham Lincoln gave his most famous address, and I think his final sentence captures why we're here today. He said that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And everything is at stake in what happened during this election cycle. Everything. The republic is at stake. This is no game for us. And for any veteran in this room here who wore the uniform, such as Brigadier General Scott Perry, thank you for being here, sir. Put their lives on the line here fighting for a country, and to see that there's a group in this state and country willing to throw away our valuable and precious freedoms here for power. You know, for me, there we go. And Mr. Mayor, it's going to be a fantastic hearing today. Despite pleas from our citizens, the governor refuses to even consider that there was any shenanigans in the elections here in our state, a state of 13 million people, and he wants to discount because his guy won that nothing bad happened, and that's just unacceptable. If there's any hint of fraud out there, we need to investigate. Any governor serving the people, this Commonwealth, would put aside his petty politics, and find out the truth if anyone was defrauded. And at this point here, he's unwilling to do that. Let me point out some hard facts here. We are in Adams County, named after our second president, John Adams, who famously said, "Facts are stubborn things." Let me lay out several of these inconvenient truths.
And his staff have been enormously helpful today. It really goes without saying, we would not be here without Doug Mastriano, and so I'm going to give him the last word, because I know even if I didn't, he'll take it anyway. And he deserves to have it. Doug.
I love you, Senator Argyle. Thank you for being willing to use your committee to do this hearing. So we pulled the trigger yesterday morning around 9 a.m., and look what happened here. And as Jesus said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Guess what? Guess what? The truth's out there. Media, you should have found these witnesses. You need to do your job. Now you see them out here. Do your job. You're essential to this republic, and without you doing your job, instead of being partisan hacks, this republic can't stand. So now you got some information, you got some witnesses with courage. These people are heroes to me. As a retired Army colonel, I look at them and I say, you guys are outstanding. Thanks for being willing to step up. Because I am cognizant that the so-called tolerant people on the left will not show much love or tolerance to people they disagree with. And so thank you for standing, because you're warriors, being able to stand for and save this republic. So thank you for going forward here. I mean, indeed, I started this off quoting from John Adams. We are in Adams County. You know, facts are stubborn things. There's a lot of hard facts out there, and guess what? As history and change in 1863 in Gettysburg, back then it's July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So on this day, history is changing for our country and state, back at Gettysburg once again. I mean, I don't even know how this happened in America. We could send 50 years ago, you know, men to the moon, but we can't have a safe, secure election in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. What's going on here? It's got to be by design, because we have the technology, we have stealth aircraft that are the envy of the world, but we can't run an election better than Afghanistan. Congressman Perry, you and I are in Afghanistan, and I don't know how in the heck Afghanistan has more secure, safe elections than Pennsylvania does. I mean, beam me up, Scotty. There's no sign of intelligent life anywhere. Really? We move heaven and earth with American dollars to secure elections in Iraq and Afghanistan and elsewhere. We can't do it in our own state. It's by design. There's people in Pennsylvania not interested in safe, secure elections, and we have to correct this. There's two things that need to happen. First off, we need to make sure the real winner is sent forth from this presidential election. And number two, we need to fix this. This doesn't happen ever again. You know, I can't believe we're having this conversation here in Pennsylvania. You know, this is the kind of stuff I hear about that goes on in Belarus under Lukashenko, or in Russia under Putin, under Saddam Hussein's Iraq. Really, here in our state, I mean, this is disgusting to me. You know, I watched when I was doing strategy in Russia, you know, Putin's people stuffing ballot boxes. The same thing that happened in Pennsylvania. When I saw that 15, 20 years ago, I was like, well, thank God we're not like that. What happened? What happened? And we're not going to let it stand. You know, I saw, you have to forgive people because we are a constitutional republic, so I'll forgive those that say democracy, but I saw one man had a sign in Philadelphia, and the irony wasn't lost on me. Democracy dies in Philadelphia. Can you imagine the irony of that? You know, where the light of liberty was lit in 1776, it transformed this world. We're in this very same state, a new birth of freedom. And then, of course, let's not forget 2001, Todd Beamer, let's roll. You know what? It's our time to roll. This is no time. You know, democracy can die in darkness, in dark rooms with no transparency and accountability. We're shining light on this darkness here. We're going to take our state back. We're not standing aside in this hour. You know, as Representative Metcalf rightly said, in 1994, there was so much shenanigans and cheating in the Marks versus Stinson case that a federal district judge threw out the election results, took a senator out of Harrisburg, state senator, and put the Republican in because the election results were so corrupted. So we do have a precedent here, federal courts, and I hope you take a hard look at that here. Has our election results in Pennsylvania at the presidential and other levels been so corrupted that the results have to be thrown out? That's going to be a case you're going to have to make before the Supreme Court there, but it sure sounds like something stinks in Denmark or in Philadelphia. I don't know. You know, one vote, one person, one legal vote per person, and any cheating goes in there disenfranchises an American. And I can't believe this is happening here, and we're not going to let it stand. I don't know why it's so hard. You know, I know it's hard because this has been going on here for a lot longer than we imagine. But in Galatians 6:9, we're told by St. Paul, grow not weary doing good, because in due time you'll reap your harvest. We're going to reap our harvest.
It's doing well, sir. It's doing quite well. We just recently got here. We're looking forward to continuing our mission.
That's great. Doing a fantastic job, and we appreciate it. And thank you very much, Colonel. Tremendous to be with you. Happy Thanksgiving. Say hello and a happy Thanksgiving to everybody. And we'll see you soon. Thank you for the job you do.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colonel, go ahead, please. Marine Corps.